Hey folks, Kilt-Man here, Kilt-Man, at your mean, moody and gothic services. How are you all? I hope you're doing very, very well. Right, now, why must I wait the arrival of my fabulous mask from Trick or Treat Studios for the Dave Prowse monster from Frankenstein and a monster from hell? I thought, why not just review the movie as well? Because I've been tracking this delivery, this mask, and its little friend. There's two masks coming, and they are currently residing in a depot not very far from me. Why are they residing there, waiting to go on a van, when they should just be here by now? I don't know, but it makes me think, are they even going to come today, when they should do? So, I thought, well, what the hell? Just watch the film, the great final entry in Hammer's Frankenstein series, Frankenstein and a Monster from Hell, 1974. Why not just watch that and then review it? Because you're always going to do it anyway. So, here we are. Whilst we await that little knock on the drawbridge. Yes. Master, packages have arrived. They're in a wagon down the road. Send out the team of servants to ferry them in. While we await that, we'll talk about the film itself. Now, 1974, Hammer is in its death throes. It's in financial ruination. They'd already tried to break the mould in the 70s because they couldn't keep up with Hollywood. They couldn't keep up with the European independence. They could not keep up with the vogue for more graphic, more realistic, and just simply more outrageous movies. Their time in the limelight, that shockingly gaudy, vibrant Eastman colour limelight, was really, really waning at this time. A crying shame, we all know, but it just adds to the mythos. And in the 70s, they tried to break new ground. Michael Carreras, head honcho of Hammer, was pushing new boundaries. We'll do psychodramas, we'll do literary classics, but we'll put a new spin on them. Hence you get Hands of the Ripper, you would get Dr. Jekyll and Sister Hyde, a transgender, gender-bending sort of take on Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And we'll bring in vampire lesbianism. Oh, we'll do all this sort of stuff just to try and rock the boat of the establishment. We're not really the quaint old cosy traditional horrors that you all thought we were. But sadly, that's what they were. Even when they tried to bring Dracula into the present day, Dracula AD 1972, the Satanic Rites of Dracula, they were mere travesties of what they should have been doing. And so for this, 1974's Frankenstein and the Monster from Hell, Michael Carreras had the strange idea, going against the grain, well, you know what, sod it. We can't fight them, nor can we join them. We have our in-house team behind the camera, our in-house rep company of actors. Let's just play to our strengths. Let's bring all that back in. And as well as doing that, he would reunite Terence Fisher, their greatest director, who was now sadly towards the end of his life, but still had vigour in him. Likewise, the great Peter Cushing as the Baron Frankenstein. Let's bring him back. They'd already tried an outrageous new take on Frankenstein by bringing Ralph Bates in for the sort of comedy version, a black comedy, but it was just absurd. And I've said many times, it ranks alongside To the Devil a Daughter as the absolute nadir of Hammer's output. I detest Horror of Frankenstein. I think it's an appalling movie. And yet, bizarrely, it stars the only man to have played a Frankenstein monster in two Hammer movies, and that would be Dave Prowse, the late great Dave Prowse. But in Horror of Frankenstein, they give him a baldy flat top and a nappy. It's a shocker for all the wrong reasons. But he gets his chance to shine here, and shine he does. And I'm going to try to give him some credit where a lot of people just haven't bothered to do so. Anyway, 1974. This take goes back. You're bringing in all the old set design, matte paintings, model work for this Carlsbad asylum, for the criminally insane, lovely glass painted backgrounds, all of this sort of stuff. And basically all an enclosed set. There's no exteriors, apart from a beginning shot in a cemetery with Patrick Troughton, the great Patrick Troughton, many Hammer movies under his belt and was about to go into The Omen, for Gregory Peck and Lee Remick, Richard Donner directing it. Big A-list blockbuster horror, the sort of thing that Hammer could never really aspire to be. And Patrick Troughton was about to go and do that. But he's there as a body snatcher working for the enormously, gorgeously pretty boy Shane Briant, often described as being androgynous at this particular time. He was in a 4-picture deal with Hammer. He'd done Demons of the Mind. He had done the Psycho Shocker Straight On Till Morning with Peter Cushing, and he had done just the year before Captain Kronos, Vampire Hunter, one of my absolute faves of Hammer and of any movie. I adore that film for the awesomely clever and witty Brian Clemens directing and writing it. So he was culminating his deal with Hammer with this Frankenstein and the Monster from Hell. So you've got Terence Fisher, you've got Peter Cushing returning after Ralph Bates' travesty. And this film will remember what's gone before in the multi-movie series so far. Frankenstein has gone from being an ambitious, illustrious, highly inspiring scientist. In the first movie, Curse of Frankenstein alone, he's helped in murders, he's done grave robbing, he's broken every blasphemous rule going, he's threatened all and sundry. He is a maniac. He's about to face, execution. But Revenge of Frankenstein sees how he gets out of that. But throughout the rest of the movies, he'll commit rape, he'll commit murder, he'll commit untold sins against nature. So in this, we find that he has fate's caught up with him, the judiciary's caught up with him. His hands have been burned in the previous movie, which was Frankenstein Must Be Destroyed. Was it? I think it was that one. I could get confused. There's so many of them. So please correct me if I'm wrong. You always do anyway. His hands have been burned, but he's now he's in the asylum himself. But as Shane Briant, pretty boy Shane Briant, outside has been learning from the journals of Frankenstein, and he's trying to do the same thing. He's trying to commit the same experiments and create life from lifelessness, And he's been using Patrick Troughton as a grave robber. But they get uncovered, and Shane Briant as Dr. Simon Helder will end up at the asylum. But he's quite happy about that because he knows that Frankenstein was there too. But Frankenstein is still there. Only, what's he done? Because Frankenstein is such an arch manipulator, such a clever scientific grave-robbing bastard, he has now found dirt on the asylum director, played by the great John Stratton, who is a brandy-swilling, womanizing, abusive bastard, abusing his powers there. Him and his nefarious wardens or warders who prowl the walls and corridors of this gothic monstrosity of an asylum, obviously abuse and torture the inmates, and any new inmate comes through an initiation, as Shane Briant will do when he gets sent there. They will strip him off and put the hose on him. If you watch that scene, that's a real fire hose with real forceful water really hitting him, and it leaves livid welts on his body. That's Shane Briant really suffering for his art there. So Shane Briant's got himself in there, and he knows Frankenstein was there, so he's quite happy about that. He wants some kind of power in there himself. But of course, the Baron is still there. The Baron found dirt on the abusive would-be rapist of his own daughter, played by Maddie Smith, the awesome Sarah, who is known as the angel amongst all the inmates for her beatific smile, her innocence, her purity, and the way she looks after all the inmates. Frankenstein knew what happened, and in rage has turned the tables on the director, John Stratton. So now, together, they've concocted the plan that Frankenstein has died, and he's out there in the courtyard graveyard. I am now Dr. Victor, and I am not an inmate. I work here. But he always needs assistance. He is still looking after number one. He still wants to create. What you can hear there is the film itself, Frankenstein and the Monster from Hell. I'll just whisk this round and show you. I don't know if you can see. Maddie Smith and Dave Prowse. That mask is arriving, hopefully, today. Now, he's still conducting his experiments, but because his hands have been burned, he can't do the finite surgery. So he's been using Sarah, who is mute because of the shock and outrage of the attempted rape that her father, conducted on her. So he uses it to do all the work for him. And you've just seen all she's come up with all the bodies that they've used, is a dog's dinner of a body. A great big simian, hairy brute who was not the professor. That's the brain that goes into this body. But one of the inmates there who was a throwback, purely homicidal, didn't know his own strength, bent the bars back on his cell and leapt 30 feet to his not death. And that's the weird thing about this movie. Although Shane Briant as Dr. Helder was having Patrick Troughton dig up dead bodies for him to do experiments on, in this version, Frankenstein himself, Peter Cushing, he's kept this throwback alive. The fall should have killed him, but his own homicidal rage and primal strength has kept him alive. So all he needs to do is put new hands on this body, but he wants a brain, and of course the body is not that great because only Sarah could, under Peter Cushing's Frankenstein's instruction, could do only so much. But now he's got Simon Helder, Shane Briant, who is a doctor in his own rights and loves the work of Frankenstein. So the three of these will keep working on this huge simian, hairy, brute man body. But of course, in the special wing, you've got some of the patients that Frankenstein's really been keeping his eye on, because he knows the hands of this sculptor would be ideal. The hands of a professor, the brain of the professor, who is a mathematician but also plays the violin with such exquisite tenderness that he creates his own compositions, one which is just for Angel Maddie Smith, the lustrous Maddie Smith. And he's played by, I always forget this guy's name, lucky I wrote it down here somewhere. Oh, where is it? Oh, it's Bernard Lee, M, from the James Bond movies, M, who only appeared in the movie for a day and yet totally bewitched Maddie Smith with his plaintive grey eyes and his soft longing, because he can no longer make the sculptures. His hands, his mental decay, he can't do anything anymore, but he gives her a statue, and it's one of the film's really touching moments. It's Bernard Lee, and he's just magnificent in just a throwaway moment like that. He gives so much. Maddie Smith always said he reduced to tears with that performance, and they became very close, just for literally what's on screen for like a couple of moments. But it's in there, and it's truly wonderful. So, but those hands are useless as well. So they want the brain. They want the brain of the professor. So, and the professor is reduced to killing himself, hanging himself by the strings of his own violin, in a really tragic, horrible sequence. Well, if you look closely, he's still breathing. You see him hanging there. The violin strings are cut into his throat, but he's still breathing. Now, that may well be a mistake, but it also looks on camera truly. I'm doing Peter Cushing's thing of the finger, the emphatic finger, which is in this film quite a lot, like that, in his gloves to hide the burnt hands. And also Peter Cushing would wear gloves a lot because he smoked a hell of a lot, and his yellowing, nicotine-laced fingers, he didn't like to be seen, so he would always have gloves on. So you see him breathing, and it adds a horrible moment of, oh God, maybe he's still alive. And that in a way bleeds into the Frankenstein's not using dead bodies, he's using the living. He wants to transport brains and eyeballs and other bits into this big body. My real query is that, well, if you can do all that, and now you've got Shane Briant and a steady young hand, you can use one of these other bodies, for God's sake. Use one of them. You've already brought dead bodies back to life. Why not just do that? Put the brain inside another, less nasty, aggressive body, and put the hands on, and you could really get something which could approach, well, I was going to say Adonis there, but almost like Michael Sarrazin, in Frankenstein the True Story, although that does decay and reverse the process and he becomes a hideous monster himself. But you could have done that, but no. They keep it in this simian brute body and a huge prosthetic bodysuit inhabited by Dave Prowse. And Dave Prowse, when he awakens and he has the brain of the professor who played the violin but the hands no longer work, and he's in this hideous monstrosity of a body, the body of a creature with a man that had pure primal homicidal tendencies. So even though Frankenstein, look, we can educate you, have patience, Professor, they get a blackboard for him. As well as playing the violin, he was a wonderful mathematician. He was a professor. And maths is the purest poetry of all. The truest beauty is when it all works. And the walls of his cell were littered with formula and calculations. It's wonderful stuff. But because he can't play the violin anymore, and he has the sculptor's hands, but the hands don't work, the body of a monster. And the body, as we learn, which is kind of a weird reversal, instead of a murderer's brain using the body to do its own nefarious deeds, the body works on the good brain and begins to revert the brain. It's a weird twist. Not sure if that's really a clever idea, but it's an idea that still works well for the story of this movie, which was written, by the way, by John Elder. John Elder is, of course, Hammer producer extraordinaire, and often wrote screenplays under the pseudonym of John Elder, Anthony Hines. And it is a great script, despite a few areas where you think, why, that doesn't make any sense. But the relationship between the three, Frankenstein, Shane Briant, Simon Helder, and Sarah, as we learn that they work together, but then Simon will learn that you left. Why did the professor commit suicide? You left a note saying that he was incurable. Why would you do that? Oh, so that he would kill himself, so you could get to his brain. You wanted the brain. So when they discover that the body is reverting the brain to more primal tendencies, that beast man had a predilection for broken glass. He would put bottles into people's faces, and in several scenes you will see a jar will break, and the beast man will see it, and the body remembers, although he's corrupting the brain, which is a good brain, and he'll pick it up and he'll threaten. So they begin to realize, and then he's doing calculations on a blackboard, and hungry, smashes the blackboard away. And Peter Cushing's Baron is getting very, impatient and annoyed. No, just try, practice more, keep your brain. In a really shocking moment that I find that no one ever seems to report upon, when they all think they put the brain in his body and everything's working and he's responding and he knows who he is and he's doing calculations on the blackboard. Shane Briant, we should have a toast. A toast, you are a success. Frankenstein, Baron, you've done it. You've created man, a new man. So off they go to another room, leaving the thing that they created, just alone with his head in his hands. Agonising over this, the sorry state that he's in, and what went wrong. He's now attacking Shane Briant with, here we go. Watch. In fact, I should show you this. Let's look at this. Look at this. Christopher Lee. Peter Cushing is now approaching 60, but he looks much older. Watch your head, Peter. Poof! Oh, could have been dodgy, that. I hope, folks, you could see that. I never checked if the angles or the light would shine on it. So I'm sorry if that didn't work out too well. I'm sorry. But as I always say, if in doubt, throw some whiskey down your neck, and everything's better again. So yeah, this predilection for broken glass, they realise, look, this has not been a great success. He's reverting back. Oh, I failed. But Frankenstein comes up with another plan. Always, he's forward thinking, he's progressive all the time, but at the expense of humanity, of spiritualism, of compassion. Why don't we have him mate? We can have him mate with Sarah. What? You're going to have him mate with the poor mute girl who everyone loves, with Angel. You're going to have... Her father tried to rape her, and now you're going to have this brute man try to rape her. Ah, that finger again. See, it's Peter Cushing. Peter always had something in his hand, something to work with, something to do. He'd play with his coattails. He'd twizzle the Robespierre wig that he's wearing, which is rather ridiculous. Everyone says he's wearing a very bad wig in this one, but there's reasons for it. The hands are burnt from the previous movie, that maybe the hair was burnt and he is wearing a wig on purpose. But I actually don't mind that wig. It does have a bit of a Beau Brummel look to it as well. It's very curly, but it does lend him quite a noble, aristocratic, yet almost adventurous look. So, and Peter Cushing, gaunt as he always was, of course, we've discussed it many times. Fellow Hammer fans, we all shed a tear over this. His wife Helen, who he doted upon and adored and was devoted to, had finally passed away after a long illness, and he was destroyed. He would act and perform and live for many years more, but he would just shrink even more and more and more, and he looks shockingly thin on this. Those cheekbones have just gone, and he is a pure skeleton, but those eyes retain a life of their own, and his professionalism, his dedication, his seriousness, he gives everything to a role. No matter how campy people would always accuse these films of being, and yet they hardly ever were camp. Hardly ever. Horror of Frankenstein, yes, it was. But this and most of the films of Peter Cushing were anything but camp. They gave a lot of gusto, a lot of integrity to a lot of strange and wacky way out, rather ridiculous scripts in a lot of cases, but they gave everything and commitment to it, none more so than Peter Cushing, who owns every film that he's in. And as you see there, despite he's only approaching 60 in this, that's not old at all, but he's getting old before his time. He is dying of a broken heart, and you see it in his face, but doesn't stop him, like in the original Dracula, where he runs across the trestle table and pulls down the curtains, letting the sunlight in, holding two candlesticks together to make a crucifix to destroy Christopher Lee's Count. And of course, in a lot of movies, although he never looks like an action-packed sort of guy, that's what he does, and you just saw it there, breaking the chloroform inside his jacket, and then leaping on the back of the monster, and choking him out. It's incredible stuff. Of course, he would reunite with Dave Prowse on Star Wars. Peter Cushing, Grand Moff Tarkin, and Dave Prowse as Darth Vader. Now, Dave Prowse, he's growling, he's speaking there, hungry. I've never learned is that Dave Prowse was always bloody dubbed over. That West Country accent never really seemed to go down well for, galactic despots or whatever he was playing. But apart from the Green Cross Code Man. But in this, hungry angel, is that his voice? No one's told me otherwise. I presume it is. I don't know. I genuinely don't know. Dave Prowse lobbied hard to play Frankenstein's monster, but he was kicked out the first time by Michael Carreras. No, don't want you. Bodybuilder, champion. He always wanted to play a monster, more athletic. He wanted to be a werewolf, leaping around the sets and ripping people up left, right and centre. That's what he wanted to do. But he does get to do a little bit in this. And when he goes on his big rampage, Shane Briant rebels against Frankenstein. No, this whole mating thing, you've gone beyond it now. So he tries to kill off the monster, tries to poison him, and tries to stick him with a scalpel, a 19th century scalpel. But Maddie Smith, Sarah, walks in and sees him and screams, "No!" This was the mute girl. Frankenstein said that maybe another shock will bring her back to life, will bring her voice back. So Shane Briant tries to kill the monster to try and save her from a rape, a bestial rape. But she then saves the monster from him and him from the monster. But it doesn't matter. The monster then goes on the rampage in pure rage, goes out, goes into the graveyard in the courtyard, starts digging up amid lightning strikes with crucifixes, digging up the graves, trying to find the bits of the body that he was. It's horrible. Meanwhile, the director has come back with a tottery, brazen young whore to his room to ply her with brandy and then give her a tour of all the inmates. But they hear there's a monster out there. The two horrible wardens. It's in the graveyard. Get guns. Take the girl out. Put her back on the carriage. Go. Get guns. Kill it. So they get like flintlock pistols and go out there. But in the meantime, in a great shocking scene, there's not many deaths in this movie, but this one is a great one and caused a lot of sensor trouble as well. We've already learned that the beast loves broken glass, and what happens is the lightning strikes again and he looks out the window. There it is, digging up a horrific monster, and he's, his brandy. Lightning strikes again, looks again out the window, but as he gets there, the monster just comes through the French windows, tears the curtains down, a bit like the Mummy always does, smashes the brandy bottle, and as he recoils in horror, puts it into his throat. Gouts of blood spray everywhere. A scene that was always cut on TV, but great, shocking. You can hear him screaming in rage now, the monster, and all the inmates are going, he's back, he's going to get his revenge. And all the inmates have little characters too. Some who just cackle or laugh or chatter incessantly. One's a lech who gropes for Maddie Smith's breast all the time. There's a lot of character stuff in this. It's wonderful, wonderful stuff. Grand, ghoulish, gothic extravaganza. And the sets look great. The sets by Scott McGregor. Scott McGregor! Oh, hi! I was going to wear me McGregor today and I didn't. I've got a McLeod on again, as usual. Oh, never thought. But, so he's killed the director now, and then he comes lumbering down the corridors of the asylum, smashes down some steel bar gates, and then he makes an impassioned plea to Angel, as everyone's amassed around him, and Angel reaches out for him, but the inmates think he's going to hurt Angel. They all love Angel. The monster loves Angel. The last thing he wants to do is hurt her. And then in a really shocking finale, they all descend upon him and tear him apart, ripping up bits, and one's got a little doll and she's feeding some of the monster's giblets to him. And it's like, at the time, you'd had Robert Aldrich had done Ulzana's Raid, a savage Burt Lancaster Apache cavalry western, which I've talked about a lot. And in that, you see people getting ripped up and body parts getting strewn about in atrocities and torture. That came out at the same time. I've got a feeling that played a part in the finale of this. Frankenstein comes back because he's been away and missed all this, come back and then got clobbered by the monster. Then it goes out on its rampage. He gets in just in time to see the mess all over the floor, and he finally says to the warders, "You can get your hose now. Clean up this place." And then in a beautiful epitaph he says to all the inmates, "Be quiet now. Nothing to see here now. Go back to your rooms. It's all over." But it's not all over, because even though this was the last Hammer Frankenstein movie, he has Sarah, he has Simon Helder, Shane Briant. He says, no, he's bandaging up his arm, which was injured when the monster struck him and then went out on its rampage. No, we must begin again. I've learnt when I've gone wrong. Too much surgery involved. More biomechanics, biochemistry. This is a film that, although there's only limited kills in it, very limited, but it's gory. It lingers on the surgeries, the brain removal, the hacking apart of the skull, the twisting off of the cranium, the removal of what is a sheep's brain, a lamb's brain I think it is, and it stunk. They left it over a weekend, and of course poor Shane Briant and Peter Cushing are trying to stifle back. They're gagging on the stench of this thing. The stitching of the hand together. I can't hold the artery. So in a great, apparently improvised, there's that finger again, improvised moment, Cushing says, well, the Baron would just hold it with his teeth. So as Shane Briant's trying to stitch the hand, this new hand to the stump of an arm, Peter Cushing has got the Baron has got the artery clamp with his teeth like that, and then just like, Sarah, bring water and a handkerchief, and just grabs himself afterwards, and it's a great moment. The gore is plentiful, but it's mostly in surgery. Eyeballs, sheep's and cows' eyeballs being liberally bandied about. Brains are getting slopped on the floor. But actual kills, you've only got the one major kill in it, which is a shame. I always thought that, I'm disappointed by the finale. He's just coming in to take out the director. Oh, I won't show you it again. Swiveling it round. Oh well, oh well, oh well. Here we go. Oh, splash. Gouty. Apparently the Japanese cut shows a little bit more of that sequence, but anyway. Folks, I'm noticing the time again, and as you regular viewers will know, that I have a bit of a cut off around about the 32-minute mark, so I will try to wind this up a little bit. There's much more I could say about this movie. The production design is awesome, the art design, the lighting is incredible. Although it's a throwback to earlier Hammer style and does definitely go against the grain for films, horror films of the 70s, it still stands out as a great entry in Hammer's fantastic canon of body of work. One of the greater Frankenstein movies as well. It's got a few twisted ideas, but it's got a heartfelt procession of performances which really stand it apart from the rest. And I like that monster design. It frightens me. That nightmarish sequence of in the cemetery, the lightning, and he's digging up graves is indelible on my brain from when I was a kid. I'm still terrified by it, yet I still feel sorry for him. Dave Prowse, the eyes, the voice, he does so much inside that bodysuit. He's getting torn apart now. Folks, I have been the Robert Shelby Kilt-Man, a Hammer devotee. Hopefully I'll be back soon with The Mask to talk more about this great movie. Frankenstein and a Monster from Hell. Folks, please keep it Celtic, keep it Celtic. And I'm going to see you all in an asylum near you. Ooh, later. Great James Bernard score as well.